Welcome to the Travel Winds Podcast. Today I'm lucky to have Steve Stevens as my guest. How are you today, Steve?
I'm great. Nice to talk to you today.
Appreciate you coming on. Steve is a Grammy Award-winning guitarist, songwriter, composer. Background includes Billy Idol, solo tracks, Top Gun, Grammy Award-winning theme song, flamenco, solo projects, Vince Neil's band, Deathland Rituals, probably your newest one.
Sure.
Wow. How are you doing today? That's a lot to say.
I'm great. I'm here. Every day I have a home studio, so every day is a mixture of home and work, but that's what I love to do. I'm literally sitting here, taking a break from recording a new demo. So happy to talk to you. Yeah.
You've got literally 40 plus years in the music industry now. How has travel changed from your perspective?
Well, touring has become such an important part of how we survive as musicians. It used to be that you do an album. I mean, we're talking about first record I did about 1981. So you'd spend 4 months in the studio, and then you do a touring cycle, and mostly tour bus, and then you go tour the cycle of that record, and then go back and do another record, and it could be 2 years between that. But the business has changed so much that it's kind of more. It's funny. It's more like the way it was in the early days, in one sense. Like, give you a perfect example. Led Zeppelin, for the first 3 records, they recorded, when they could find studio time. Their second album was recorded on the road in studios that they would book after a gig and stuff. And now with laptop computers and stuff like that, we'll be demoing songs in the hotel and wherever it's all part of the same sphere of creating. So, and now there's so many countries that you go and tour. It was never considered before. South America, Russia. I've been to all the Eastern European countries and gone and played festivals, and so and the world's a smaller place, obviously, with the internet. So it really is. It can be grueling at times, but it's also you get to see people in every walk, from every walk of life in every country.
I love what you said, because I feel the same way, that the world is just smaller now because of the internet.
Without a doubt, yeah.
I mean, you can FaceTime. You can find out the weather's like in a different city. I mean, do you remember back when, if you had to catch a flight, you had to show up and find out if your flight was going to be late or on time.
Sure.
Now you can get text warnings and email warnings that, your flight's 45 minutes late. Now it's an hour and 15 minutes late. Or
Sure, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And there's more alternatives. I mean, my wife and I just had to be in Vegas, and she booked a flight on, I forgot the name of the airline. It was the first time we had used it, but it's kind of like it's a cross between commercial and private, and it was actually a great experience. He didn't do TSA and all that.
Right.
And they operate. I'm sure she could tell you the name of the airline. We didn't even know we were going to be on it, but we do a lot of travel to Las Vegas, and this was a really nice alternative. So it seems like there's airlines that are looking to do things in a different way as well.
Even like even the private airlines. I'm talking to a few for the podcast, and the private jet used to be like, I mean, no one did that, and now it's business people are doing it, and it almost seems like there are much more convenient ways to travel private, even if it's semi-private or booking a back leg of a private that came in. So
very true. Yeah, we do every year we do a residency with Billy Idol in Las Vegas, and we started off doing it at the House of Blues, which was Mandalay Bay, and now we're over at the Palms. But literally, I finish a show. We do 3 shows a week: Wednesday, Thursdays off, Friday and Saturday. And Saturday night, I live in Los Angeles, so we finish the show by around 11:30. Pack up. I'm home in bed by about 1 o'clock because we travel private back home. I mean, that's incredible.
It's a 45-minute flight. I mean,
yeah, and it's Las Vegas is, become such an entertainment capital now, and there's a lot happening with the new Madison Square Garden Arena going up, and the hockey arena, and
the football stadium.
So, yeah, the football stadium. So we're seeing a lot more travel to Las Vegas back and forth.
Yeah, when I was just there, we toured. I got a private tour of the new stadium for the Raiders.
Right,
and
that's going to be incredible.
It's unreal.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just unbelievable. But like you said, they're expecting a lot of people literally flying in from Oakland or LA, go to the game, Uber to the stadium,
right,
Uber back to McCarran, and then fly home.
Yeah, that's right.
So I mean, Southwest, it's a $50 flight.
Yeah.
So there'll be some raucous times if the Raiders lose after a game.
Yeah, true.
At the Southwest terminal.
True.
So I was going to ask you, the difference between, I see a lot more residencies coming up, especially in Vegas, and it used to kind of be where people went to die, in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, at least back when I remember, and now it's Celine Dion, it's Britney Spears, it's Billy Idol, it's current people that are. So what's the big draw other than not having to travel every night of your life?
Well, you really get to hone your show in, and a lot of what we found is a lot of the fans that come in, they come in from all over the world. I mean, from Japan and South America, and they'll come in for all three shows, as I mentioned, we do each week. So you can kind of dig for an artist like Billy Idol. We've got a 38-year career of songs that we can dig out that maybe we haven't done in a while. We call them the deep cuts, because every show, every week, each day of the week is going to be a little bit different, and it gives us a chance to really hone in on a show, because you don't have to break down. You've never seen a happier road crew.
Exactly.
They're not having to break the gear down and get on the road, and because those are the guys that really, really do the heavy lifting, the serious work on little sleep sometimes and no showers, and they don't get the hotel arrangements. Yeah. But when you do a Vegas residency, obviously the hotel is taken care of, so we all stay in the same hotel, and it's really great for those guys. And our crew guys, some of them have been with us 18, 20 years now, so it's a great vibe. And it's a great it's not what Elvis used to do.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Although Elvis is sweet at the Hilton, top notch right there.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, he had a walk-in tub.
Yeah.
I toured that during the rodeo about 6 years ago.
Right.
And
okay. Yeah.
He had a tub you could walk into, and it was measured perfectly for the height of his neck, so it wouldn't get his hair wet. It was awesome. Anyways, but yeah, I mean that's kind of the cool thing about the residencies. When you're on tour, even like with your upcoming tour in Australia and New Zealand, you're not out hitting it every 2 nights. You're still kind of spacing it out, and I guess that's kind of the benefit of playing with Billy now. But
yeah, we usually average about 3 or 4 shows a week. Singers obviously have to give their voice a break. Yeah. We're older gentlemen now, and it's we kind of we need to rest a little bit, but it's still a rocking show. We still we're not up there with sitting down or anything. It's still a rock and roll show.
I was going to ask you, because of the 3 nights and like you were talking about, you've done some really great unplugged work and acoustic work with Billy over the different. Do you try and incorporate that in every show, or is that just however you guys are feeling?
Well, it's interesting. We have we have our full band show, and during the course of that, somewhere in the middle, we break out some ballads and things, and get a little bit acoustic, a little bit more acoustic bass, because people want to ear break anyway. You don't want to hit them with 110 dB for 2 hours. So we and it's dynamics in a show or something, pacing and all of that stuff is something that we've become really good at. That's how you put a show together. But the other cool thing is that Billy and I have done these shows where they're duo. They're kind of very intimate. It's just the two of us on stage. It's a full hour and a half show where he'll tell a lot of stories about how the songs came together and influences, and we do a couple of covers that are kind of cool that we've never done before in that setting. And it's just, that's a testament to the strength of the songs and the catalog that we have, that, every Billy Idol song works on acoustic guitar and a vocal. That's how those songs start anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's how you wrote them.
So and it's kind of cool for us because we get to rearrange a song. Let's say, Rebel Yell, we've been doing, 37 years. So to do it acoustically in a totally different environment is really cool. We're not burnt out on it, and we kind of get to like re-explore the song itself.
That was the first time I'd ever heard you play flamenco, which was on the Unplug of Rebel Yell. And I was like,
I tell people, I'm not a traditional flamenco guitar player. I just listen to the guys that are. But that's always the way it is for us rock and roll guitar players. Say in the late '60s, those guys like Eric Clapton, and they were listening to Black American blues guys and country music, American country. And for me, there's a lot of like amazing flamenco players, and so I just kind of like I don't know. There's a great example of the internet. I had done a flamenco record, and before I did it, I contacted this guy who had a online store called Flamenco World, and he was based in Spain, in Barcelona. And lo and behold, he knew who I was and was interested in my rock side. And I said, "Can you recommend me all the best flamenco stuff?" And he sent me, a care package of, about a dozen amazing flamenco records. And I sent him a bunch of rock records. And, that's a perfect example of, the internet at its best.
Good trade-off.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And speaking of travel, I've gotten to go play. I'll tell you, I was very nervous the first time I played in Spain because I thought, they're going to throw tomatoes at me. Who's this gringo? Trying to play our music, but they were really cool. They I think they understood that I was honoring this, the style of flamenco. And I'm always quick to if somebody makes a mention about something, I'll always say, "Hey, you should check out Paco de Lucia," or somebody, expose them to the real deal. And I just look at it as another color to paint with.
And I think that's what's so cool about your play. I mean, there are a lot of great musicians, but to me, there are only a few that there are certain guitar sounds that you can hear and you go, "Oh, that's Steve Stevens," or "That's the Edge from U2," or there are certain Flea on bass. Yep, it just has kind of an iconic sound, and you've reached out as well, so it's very cool.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes that's maybe more important in some ways than the actual flash of the notes and things like that. Is I was always a fan of bands. I always loved guys that created something bigger than the sum of the parts is bigger than the individuals. Like
Nick Page.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect example. And we tried to do that with Billy Idol and create something. And I felt it was important to develop a guitar sound and style that was identifiable, because all the greats have that. So rather than, sit in a room and learn to play, really fast or something, I always chose to, put my energies into making the song better.
And so far, so good, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll stick with it. I mean, that's the best thing, man, is, I get to do something that I really love, and it's never ending. You can always learn more, and you can always discover new stuff about music, and traveling to, different countries and stuff, you get exposed to different styles of music, and I just soak it up like a sponge.
Well, I was going to ask you, when you traveled the 80s and 90s versus now, are you, maybe you did back then, I definitely did when I was in my 20s, but when you go out and travel, do you try and set up time to go see the local cuisine, the local things that are happening, or is it just get in and get out?
No, I do. I mean, my wife travels with me, and it's I'm really fortunate that I've got a group of guys, including Billy and the band, that really adore her, and she helps run the meet and greets, and so she's great at that, and she'll fire off an email to everybody before we hit a country and say, hey, I've found this restaurant, or when we were in France, she had found out about this interactive Van Gogh exhibit where it was all I can't even say it was a museum, but it was like a space where they projected live images of all his paintings, and you were kind of immersed in it. And that was from her just seeing something on the internet about it, and we went and did that. And so it's either some museum things happening, and and for us as musicians, you're looking to be inspired by either architecture or and the guys in the band are all really intelligent, and they're always turning us on to different things. Hey, you got to go check this out, or so it's a great group of people to travel with.
I was going to say, because I always joke, like when I'm on the road, I'm talking to the other sales reps we'll sit, my buddy will be driving from Tennessee to Alabama, right? And I'll be going from here to north of San Francisco, and it's like, well, what are you doing? I go, I'm going to be driving for the next 5 hours. What are you doing? I'm going to be driving about 6 hours. I go, let's talk. All right, and we'll just chat. I mean, it's also like 2 hours later, and you're like, all right, man, I'm going to get some food. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get some gas. Yeah. So, but you kind of become that family.
You do. You definitely do, and it's I love it. I mean, you have to to be a musician. You have to love to travel. If you don't, then there's guys I know who really don't, and they don't tour. They're happy. They've chosen maybe doing film score work or something where they don't travel that much, or they're producers or engineers, and that's the they figured out. The travel thing is not for them, but it's always been. I remember my first tour, being on my first tour bus, and I was just like, I'd sit in the front of the bus and like, wow, this is exactly what I want to do.
Exactly. Well, I do the same. I always tell people I drive for a living and I do appointments in between. And because so much of it is just traveling. The appointment part's the easy part. A lot of times it's driving 6 hours, getting enough rest. The train track next to your hotel room that you didn't know about. Right. Yeah. Buzzing at 3 a.m.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes there's a lot of downtime. Let's say we do a sound check, and then you only have 2 hours before doing a meet and greet, which is where you get to meet fans and stuff. And you can't do a whole lot in that 2 hours. Maybe you can catch a bite to eat or something, but those are the only kind of thing, I mean, I'm not complaining, but those are the only downtime things that we have. But our mornings are free to do what we want, and there's a lot of cities where you'll get in late night and the city's still buzzing. So,
well, I was going to ask, like I said, I think party life touring in the 80s is probably different than nowadays. So mornings probably happen a little easier.
Yeah, well, a lot of guys realized, number one, it was our own money we were spending. You didn't always know that back then. You said, the record company's being so generous with all, hey, it's your money. And B, it really is a business now, and it's if you're just in it to do the partying thing and everything, you're not going to last long doing it. And that's not why I picked up the guitar as a kid anyway. It was it was like to express myself and and be in a rock and roll band.
You started at 7, so obviously you weren't thinking about partying at 7. From 7 to 13.
Yeah, I had no idea. I will say though, I was fortunate in the 80s when I traveled on the Concorde a couple of times, and that was incredible. Once to England and once to France, and that was just 3 hours to Europe. That was incredible.
Isn't that crazy? I would love to do that to the east, like to Tokyo.
Yeah, evidently they are developing another version of the Concorde. There is going to be another supersonic jet, I think, within the next 4 years or something. But that was just amazing experience.
3 hours, huh?
It was 3 hours. I lived in New York at the time, so it was 3 hours to 3 hours to London or to France.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I'm going to be going to Denver tomorrow, and that's a 2.5 hour flight.
Yeah.
Oh, I could be in London instead.
Yeah.
Well, even my 6 hour trip, and I have to go to Hawaii to my account over on the islands there.
Right. That's beautiful. It's so beautiful there, though.
Yeah, and it's nice. So let me ask you this question, because like I get this all the time. People hear I have Hawaii as my territory, and they're like, "Oh, you're so lucky." I am completely fortunate. It's still work, though.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I'm going to Oahu for 1 day. I'm doing an island plane over to Maui. I spend a day there. Then I'm flying to the Big Island. I'll spend 2 days on the Big Island. Then I fly 1 more day down to Kauai because I have to hit all my accounts.
Right.
So all of a sudden, it's still a work trip. So I'm like,
it is. Yeah,
I have a blast, but it's a work trip.
Yeah, I was fortunate that when I did my flamenco record, the guy who mixed the record, mixing is the last stage in the record. You do all your recording, and then you usually have a mix engineer who's coming in with fresh ears. Well, this guy had just moved to Kauai and had set up a mix studio in his house. And the label said, "Hey, would you want to go to Kauai?" So I was there for about 3 weeks. And mixing is the most stressful part because it's the last piece of the puzzle, and you're doubting everything, and that's
what everyone's going to hear.
Yeah, and it's that's it. There's no more. You can't. That's the final word on it. And I found that doing it there there was really no stress because it's just the environment of doing it there, and it was perfect. If I could ever do that again, I mean, recording the actual record, you kind of want the energy of a city or just a vibe or whatever. I couldn't imagine doing a rock and roll record there, but mixing turned out to be a really cool experience there.
Well, you have to set that up.
And the best thing was David Crosby from Crosby, Stills, Nash, I guess was living there at the time, and I was just staying in a little rented back like extension on a house thing, and so I take a couple of steps. I walk into the little town there and go for a hamburger or something, and David Crosby sitting at the counter. I'm like, this is pretty cool.
Hey man, he lives just north of Santa Barbara now.
Okay.
And I was having an account up there, and I'm doing the same thing. I was having lunch, and I'm like, and he walked in.
Unbelievable.
And he sat down across, a couple tables away. I'm like, that's fucking David Crosby, man.
Yeah. It's great when you get to meet those real legends of music that we grew up on. I mean, sometimes they can be assholes like anyone, but I'm fortunate. Most of the guys that I really admired musically have turned out to be pretty cool people in real life. So, but that was one where I kind of pinched myself. That's David Crosby.
I know. I did the same thing, and he walked in. Like, I was by myself, and I was like, I just talked to him. I just was like, Crosby, man.
Same with me. I didn't. What am I going to say to him? Hey, thanks for music.
The only time I did that, Steve, and just a little embarrassing, but I'm flying to Houston. So for me, I'm flying so much and traveling. I when I come home, I have to get everything done, which is, DMV appointments, it's doctor's appointments, it's dentists, everything.
Of course.
Right. So I go to the dentist, and I go, screw it, I don't care, because I'm just flying for today. So I'll just get some work done. They're going to numb up my mouth, and so I go to the airport. I'm at LAX, and my mouth is numb. Half my mouth is numb, and I'm like, holy shit. On my flight is Mick Mars and Nikki Sixx. And we're all just sitting there waiting, and everyone's kind of leaving them alone. I don't think a lot of people recognize them. And I'm like, holy shit, man, I'm never going to get an opportunity. This is 7 years ago. So I was just like, I'm never going to chance to ever say hi to him again. I go, So I went up and I just said, hi, I appreciate the years of the music. And,
Yeah.
and I'm sure it sounded like, they're probably like, oh, this poor young man. Got us speaking. But I had to. I was like, oh, well, screw it.
Yeah. One of the coolest things was my wife and I were, so as you mentioned, I was involved with the Top Gun film. I won a Grammy for the best instrumental performance. So the guy who I did the score with, Harold Faltermeyer, got contacted by Red Bull to do another theme for the Red Bull flying team, which is their
very cool.
These guys are, they come out of planes and they drop. Yeah, I mean, to say that they're parachutists is a gross understatement. But we did this thing, and then we did this theme, and then they invited us to do. They have an air show every year in Austria, where they're based. So we go to Austria, and they treated us like royalty. It was unbelievable. But so the night before we do the performance, they take us to the Red Bull headquarters, and it's just Harold and I, and we're playing music, and we're playing a little bit of kind of jamming or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is a very small group of people, and then I realized one of the guys. There's a bunch of planes in their corporate office. It's a huge hangar thing. But one of the guys hanging out, I don't know if you had seen. There's a gentleman named Felix Baumgartner who jumped from right. So I'm playing, and I recognized him, and I'm like, if ever you'd want to talk to, I've always imagined what would I say to an astronaut,
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody who's experienced something like, and it was just fascinating to talk to this guy who had done this, something no one else on the planet had done, and I'm like. All I do is just put my hands on a guitar. This guy's jumping from outer space, and it was really cool. And that's a great example of going to another country, and you never know who you might meet and what kind of experience you might have.
And I think that's what's interesting is for me. Everybody I talk to on my show is that way for me. Whether they're just business guys or Olympians or musicians. I mean, I'm just fascinated by. And then I have people come up to me and go, "How do I get your job?" And I'm like, "Really?"
Yeah.
Like, shit, just hit yourself in the head a few times, get dumber, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has changed in my business is we'll do a lot of corporate events and things, and you meet people. I got to meet one of the people that's developing the Hyperloop. Wow! Yeah, and I've met so many, we'll go up and do shows for some of the tech companies and things like that. And you meet some really interesting people, and you kind of that's something that never existed in the 80s. We didn't, wasn't thought of. But I think also it's a part that the musicians of my era, the people that grew up with our music now have, the businesses, and they have disposable income, and also we get a lot of people with their kids at Billy Idol shows who are, I love when their kids just play, learning how to play guitar, and they come to a meet and greet and they want some pointers or, what guitar should I get them and stuff. And I'm like, man, if I could have done that, if my dad could have brought me to see,
never happened,
to see Deep Purple and meet the guy, I would meet Richie Blackmore and go, what guitar should I get? It never existed back then.
I also think, my podcast is a perfect example of the internet in the sense, now my show's been listened to in 62 different countries.
Gotcha.
And I'm just a normal guy. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think, I don't know, I think it could be good and bad because I always put rock, people that I listen to up on a platform, and there was no paparazzi, there's no TMZ to bring them down.
Right.
You heard about some of the wild stories, but
right.
There wasn't the daily deluge and videos and Twitters, and I didn't know about their politics, and I didn't know what they liked or didn't like and all that. They were kind just badasses.
It's kind of better that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't hate them for saying this one thing or having this opinion, because I would just get the album, read the cover liner from cover to cover, open it up, see what's on the jacket.
Yeah.
You know, and then we.
Yeah.
You know.
And the reality is, politics. That's a personal thing to people, and I have people in my own family that look at things differently, or and what am I going to like suddenly say? Well, that artist that I've listened to for the last 30 years, now that they say this, I'm not going to. Come on, it's a little. And the other thing is, it used to be really like when I would go see a band, it was a little bit more special because the only time you could see them was at the concert hall or whatever.
That's right. That's what I mean.
And it wasn't this overexposure. And it's like, sometimes I'm like that with actors. If I know too much about the actor's personal life, I can't believe the role that they're playing. Because I'm thinking about, well, this guy just got divorced and he was caught with his nanny. And,
Yeah.
I'd rather just
not know.
Watch the film and get lost in the story there, and not So I kind of stay away from a lot of that kind of stuff.
My wife and I were just talking about that. We were some show. Rock Hudson was on it, and at the time he was just the leading man,
right?
And literally I think it was a Dynasty show or something.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
8 months later, he died of AIDS, and no one even knew he had it.
Yeah, I mean I don't have a Twitter account for that reason. My wife does, and anything. We're together so often that anything that I'm going to be doing, a show, or I have an Instagram, but if it's something that she's going to post it and people are going to see it, but I don't. Twitter is not. It's a little bit. It's just not. It's something I've avoided, and it seems fine. My life is going on. It's fine without
exactly.
it.
Well, and I always tell people have asked me whenever I tell them I'm from LA, because I meet a lot of rodeo people, and they're, LA to California to them is Hollywood.
Right.
And they're like, how do you sell Western clothing in California? Because they think everything's the beach and Hollywood. And they're like, well, the center part of California is actually all agricultural. I mean.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
But I said, and they're like, what are celebrities like? And I go, well, the ones I've met have been nice. And the ones that didn't look like they were having a good day, I didn't talk to them.
Yeah, right.
I go, yeah, because people have bad days.
Yeah.
Whether they're famous or not, they might have just gotten in a fight with their kid or wife, their mom, their dad, whatever.
Yeah.
They might have just been told they just got fired from a job. You don't know the day you're talking to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's most people that I know in the business, or that I've at least the musicians that I work with, are pretty gracious people. They're like I think I said before, you don't last long doing it if you're kind of a jerk,
Yeah.
I mean, one of the best things about being a musician is like getting in a room and creating something, and it's a lot like a dialogue between, let's say, four guys, and you all figure out how to talk to each other and make a song or a jam or whatever like that. And you have to accept other people's playing and other people's opinions, and it has to be a bit diplomatic, and that's what makes great bands. If you're just one of these guys who's, I've ever since growing up, I mean, there was guys in my neighborhood that were the most incredible musicians that everyone said that guy's going to be famous, but their ego, just they went nowhere because they didn't understand that it's not an insular thing. It's being in a band is a lot like making a family work.
You have to want to be work with you.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, because it's too much of a grind to be with a jerk 24/7 for months on end.
Yeah, it's there was a period of time where in the late 80s, or like a lot of music was being made with drum machines and computers and all this kind of stuff, and I've done records like that, and I couldn't wait to get back to working with real musicians. Like you can't take a drum machine out for a drink after a session. I was like, this is not for me, man. This is
Well,
so
yeah, I mean, I think it's the individuality.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And what you can achieve together, as a team. I mean, and I've been with Idol for 38 years. It's unheard of in my business, and we actually
Absolutely.
get along. We'll go to dinner together or whatever. We're still respectful of each other and proud of each other. So I got nothing to complain about with that.
Hopefully, I'm hoping to get a chance to get over there and see you while you have your residency. That'd be my goal.
Great. Yeah, I'd love to see you there.
When you mentioned, I just wanted, if I could real quick, I don't want to eat up too much of your time, but how big of a help is it to have your wife touring with you? Because, that's one of the things I always talk to my guests is, how do you balance life, family, work?
Right. Yeah. It's not for everybody. We have a unique situation. There's that age-old thing of the Yoko Ono who comes in, and although, she got a bad rap, I don't think that she split up the Beatles. I think that it was just, that was it. It was, you had and you had a lot of talent packed into that band, and people wanted to kind of go off and show what they were capable of outside of the moniker of the Beatles. But imagine if she hadn't broken them up, let's say, you wouldn't have had Wings. Well, yeah, and you wouldn't. I mean, all those George Harrison only really got an opportunity to write and show himself outside of the Beatles. Right. His great guitar work and everything. But it's a unique thing in that she's one of those people that she's kind of can hang with the band, and they accept her, and it's unique. It's been that way. When we got together, we just said we don't, this is a decision that we want to make. We don't want to be apart, and it's worked for us, and we love traveling together. And before I met her, I'd been around the world so many times, and I was like, I really want to experience it. I mean, I remember the first time I was so excited to bring her to Japan because she's so into fashion and has her own clothing line and stuff. And I said, you're going to love Japan. And it was great because I had been there. I had actually worked with a Japanese artist. So for 3 months out of the year, for 2 years, I was in Japan during the mid-'90s. And so I really got to see that country like most people wouldn't. And to bring her there, and it was just a great experience, and to bring her to England for the first time. And it's, that's kind of an important thing to me. I'm 60 years old now, and, those are the things that really, really make me happy, experiencing life with my wife.
I hear you. My wife and I are going to Tokyo for our first time in April. And
awesome.
Yeah, she goes on the Hawaii trips for me, but for some reason she's always busy when I have to go, to North Dakota.
Right.
So Hawaii, she's wide open for, though.
Yeah, imagine that.
We always end up having a few extra days.
Yeah, right.
And it keeps her happy for another year, though. So it's
right.
All good. So that's nice. So you like having her with you and
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And if she's not there, the band starts to worry. They go, "Where's Josie?" But it's a very unique situation. I mean, from management to Billy Idol himself, they really, really like her, and she's not one of those people that just like wants to hang out. She really wants to do stuff. So whether it's to help out.
She's doing the meet and greets. That's I know for a fact that's a lot of work.
Everything from me, whatever's because there's situations that arise. Oh man, Billy needs a shirt, or I need a shirt or something, and we need some. We can't go, and she'll go and do some wardrobe stuff or stuff. Yeah. Who's going to help stock the backstage or whatever foods that are required, or stuff like. So she likes to be involved, and not just sit around and.
Yeah, I mean that's my daughter went on tour with a band, and she came home and told me it's no joke. It's not the raucous party that everyone thinks it is.
Yeah.
They were opening up for Lincoln Park, the group she was working with, and they like you said, you get done at 1, they have to break down, get back on the bus at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Drive all night, wake up in a different state. Start all over again.
Yeah.
And then, every event, every venue had a different issue. You know, the lighting, this, that, whatever came up.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it.
So just bouncing around. So what advice would you give a guitarist now with the touring and all that, as far as how to handle life on the road as a guitarist or in a band?
I mean, I've gotten to know a lot of younger guitar players who are making a living in the business, because that's not a given. You know, you're not going to the days of the big record contracts and the millions of dollars being thrown at you are not. Those days are over. You know, so but I've noticed that the guys who are very entrepreneurial or using the internet. And a perfect example is a friend of mine named Pete Thorne. Now, he's not a household name, but to guitar players, he's become a guy who's got a really active YouTube presence, and he does. Originally, he did like demos for manufacturers of different pedals and stuff, and he's really good at it. And he edits the videos well, and he explains everything. So. You know, if you want to, a lot of people order gear online. So if you're not going to go to a brick and mortar store, it's great to watch somebody put a piece of gear through their paces. Now he's become so successful at it that he's now touring the world. He just got back from Asia doing clinics and to show his gear, and he's got guitars and amplifiers that are under his signature now. And that's a guy who's created a vocation that didn't exist before.
Sure.
And now, you know, he's worked with other musicians now. He's gone out with Chris Cornell. He was guitar. You know, so he's looking, guys like that. And, you know, there's a number of young guys who are really, really looking at how to do this in a different way. And obviously travel is, you have to be able to adapt. And but now, like, guitar gear and amplifiers have gotten so much smaller that you can check them in, and used to be, you know, you have to have a Marshall stack on stage. Stuff has gotten so small now. And even I have you know, we have with the main Billy Idol thing, I'm at a luxury where we get to ship all our gear, but sometimes we'll have a gig or a corporate gig where I have to have what we call a B rig, and that's a much smaller thing, or I'll have to rent some backline gear or something like that. So you have to be adaptable, and also for musicians, come in super prepared for anything that you could imagine your gig will entail, you know, because I'm the musical director in Billy Idol, and I get to, you know, hire the other guys in the band, and sometimes I'll think of something, Billy will ask me to do something, let's pull a song out that we've never done before. It's from the second record on a beat, you know, some obscure cut, and I've got to have guys who are already ready to play that tune, and not like, oh man, I didn't learn it, or, you know, that's not going to fly. So you got to know the entire repertoire of the artist, and just be a total pro, you know.
Good advice.
And just be a good person, get along with people. You know, that's a big part of it, you know. That's a real big part of it.
Do you still see a lot of diva type activity coming in?
No,
I don't see it either.
I really don't. I got to tell you, a perfect example of somebody who should be a diva. I went to South America for an all-star tour, and this was called Rock and Roll All Stars. Eventually became known as Kings of Chaos, which was put together by Matt Sorum.
Wow.
And we went to South America, and one of the musicians on the tour was Gene Simmons, and we all were expecting this diva, okay, all right, we're going to have Gene do the sound check first, because he's not going to want to wait around for other people to do this, and we're going to have to make all these and I got to tell you, he didn't want any of that treatment. He hung out at sound check, didn't want to be the first, just wanted to be, actually enjoyed hanging out watching the other guys. Turned out to be the coolest guy. Him and his wife were on the tour, and they were just like cool as can be, and just shows that you know, when you're a pro, and you know, regardless of what the public persona is, I got to work with Michael Jackson. I did Dirty Diana with him, and that was the first thing I had done, high-profile thing outside of Billy Idol, and I was really nervous. And when it came time for, when recording the Billy Idol records, it was usually Billy and myself and our producer and an engineer in the studio, no entourage. So I fly out to L.A., and I'm booked in with Michael Jackson, and I'm thinking there's going to be a huge entourage. There's going to be all this crazy stuff going on. And I opened up the studio door, and it was Michael, his Quincy Jones, who's his producer, and the engineer, and no one else. And it was so low-key, and so they couldn't – it was exactly the way I was used to working, just like, hey, try this. Okay, here's an idea. Try that. Great. Okay, cool, And I found that with all the kind of high-profile people that I've been fortunate to work with, they're just cool musicians.
That's cool. That's actually neat to hear. Because I think the news in general tends to report the bad stuff because it gets viewerships with listeners.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, you don't hear. I mean, you guys have done a lot of charity work, a lot of charity gigs.
We have, and actually that extends to the companies that I have a signature guitar out. And first of all, it was a small company. I'd been approached by some of the bigger companies, but it was a small company out of Maryland, started by a guy named Joe Nags, who was originally at PRS Guitars and started this company. And it was important for me to have a American-made instrument using American workers, and it was just a point for me. It was the guitars cost a little bit more, but they're lifetime guitars. They're those guitars that you get that are handed down through generations, and you call the company and you get the guy who's probably built your guitar on the phone.
That's cool.
And that's so part of the deal was that proceeds of the first version of guitar we did went to Music Cares, which is an organization that helps musicians that can't afford to get into treatment if they have a drug or alcohol addiction. And I've done that. I have a guitar pedal with a company called J Rocket, and their complete line, 10% of everything they make goes to children's cancer. St. Jude's. So that was before I can't take any credit for that, but when they contacted me to do a signature pedal, they said, by the way, this is something that we do, and I went, that's the company I want to work with. And then we Billy and I just did a show around Christmas to do for homeless, to benefit a homeless shelter, any time I'm asked to do stuff like that, how are you going to say no?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know we do, like, in our company's the same way. We whenever we have a leftover boot, whether it's a left or right, it comes back as a sample. We donate it to the veterans who have lost limbs.
Awesome.
So,
yeah, I actually did a track. This is a cool thing. There's a guy. Oh my God, I can't remember his name, but I did a song with a guy who was a Iraqi war veteran, and he was a musician, and we did this song together. He's got PTSD, and I was asked to do a track with him, and it was for Wounded Warriors, and I got to meet him and his wife, and they had actually helped him get a house and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it was a great experience. I was really happy to do that stuff.
And that's the stuff that I think personally should be reported more than the negative, but it doesn't catch the news.
Yeah, sometimes there's all this bureaucratic crap. There used to be an organization. Okay, so in the mid '80s, this organization said they realize there's a lot of food that goes to waste backstage that doesn't get eaten, and it's perfectly fresh, sometimes still sealed, and they would bring this to homeless shelters and they'd come and collect it, and it was like 4 kids would show up at the end of the night, and they pack up this food and bring it, and they stopped the service. I forgot the name of it because they said, well, what if somebody gets ill from the food?
They're going to sue us.
All this, right, exactly, all this kind of red tape stuff, and I was like,
Well, That's the world we live in, because I think it's just unfortunate because that's how my brain thinks too.
Yeah.
It's like, if we give something away and someone twists their ankle because they wore a boot, are they going to sue us because they think we have money?
Yeah.
Here we are trying to do a solid on them.
Yeah. Trying
to do a favor for them, and it doesn't work out.
Yeah. I don't get that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. One last thing. How proud are you of the Grammy that you won in that? And I say that only in the sense of you won the Grammy Award for Best Pop Instrumental.
Yeah, right. Well, what was cool about it is that I won the award with Harold Faltermeyer, the composer, as Best Pop Instrumental Performance. So it meant we were winning for our performance, the actual playing, the actual passion behind it. And obviously, for my parents who put up with me all the years of having my amplifier in the bedroom, and I started playing guitar. I was really young. I was like 7.5, and I don't know if I would have been as patient as they were. My dad worked. We lived in Queens, New York, and my dad worked in New Jersey. And it was an hour and a half there, an hour and a half back, and he'd still drive me to music lesson once a week and wait in the car. I always, to this day, if I see one of those Chinese takeout little containers, because he'd sit in the car and get fried rice and sit and wait for me. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I'm so grateful to have parents like that. So for them, it was a validation that all those years of sitting in the car waiting for me was worth it, to some extent. And
well, I mean, I don't know if you followed that category, but they stopped doing it in 2011.
I know they did. Yeah, I know.
You know who the last winner was?
No, I don't.
Jeff Beck.
Okay, well that's good. He deserves it.
I started looking at the category. I'm like, Jeff Beck, Eagles, Joni Mitchell, Les Paul, Brian Setzer, George Harrison, B.B. King, Eric Clapton,
all legends, all of
Santana.
Them. Yeah.
And then there's little Steve Stevens from New York.
Yeah.
How often is that?
Yeah, and it was funny because Harold, the composer, who's actually working on the Top Gun 2 as well, and evidently there's my theme will still be used in some form or another on the.
I was going to ask you about that too.
Yeah. I don't quote me on it, but this is the word I hear, which I'm glad, because something like that you wouldn't want to recreate again.
That's long as the movie.
Yeah. So, but Harold kept saying, we're going to win. And I went, but as it turns out, I was performing on that year's Grammy anyway with Billy Idol. So I was there, I was living in New York, but the Grammys were in LA, so I had to be there anyway. And then that particular category is announced in the afternoon, and we're sitting there, and, I'm all decked out in rock look and all this.
Yeah.
And the other people in the category, I remember one guy was Doc Severinsen, who was the
Tonight Show.
Tonight Show. There was all these kind of established kind of jazz people and stuff, and I thought, I'm never gonna win this thing. And when I'm sitting with Harold and they announced us, these people must have looked at me and went, "Who? What?
That guy?
You bastard!"
Son of a bitch.
But it was, it was a really great day. Just great experience.
Like you said, for your parents, that makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, hey, I appreciate the time. What's the best way for fans to follow with you? What you have coming up, or what's tour-wise? What's the best way for people to follow you?
There's a Steve Stevens Instagram, which anything that I'm doing, I usually post goofy stuff my wife and I are doing. I post funny dog stuff, whatever, whatever is on there. And also my Facebook is pretty out. I'm on there once a day, updating things, new pieces of gear, tour dates, as well as any involvement. On the Billy Idol side, Billy's really active in his Instagram now. He's always updating stuff. So between those two, you can find out where we're playing and all that stuff.
Do you have any fun projects outside of Billy coming up for 2020?
Yeah, there's a band we put together with my buddy Frankie Perez, who's the kind of an unknown gem of a singer who won't stay unknown very much longer, with Geezer Butler and Matt Sorum. Geezer's obviously from Black Sabbath, and Matt's known for Guns N' Roses and the Cult. And we went out and toured. We toured Europe last summer, and we're going to hopefully have a record out this year. It's a little bit hard to we have all of the guys have other commitments, but we've put aside I think like 3 or 4 months this year to do a record and get it out. Most of the material is written now, and it should be. I mean, I get to work with one of the greatest bass players in the history. The guy who pretty much helped invent, hard rock, heavy metal, or whatever you call it. And so hopefully we'll have that record out this year. And then there's new Billy Idol stuff we're working on.
So even at 60, you're still hustling.
Yeah, I mean, it's nobody. Look, it never changed. Nobody when I was a kid had to tell me to sit in my room for 3 hours a day and play the guitar. I did it because I loved it, and I still do. I still, there's such a great history in music and guitar, and I get to discover stuff that I never knew about the instrument and players and stuff. And oddly enough, my wife turns me on to a lot of stuff because she really reads a lot about old blues players and Robert Johnson and all this kind of stuff. She'll say, "Hey, did you know so-and-so? And did you see this?" And now with YouTube, you can find videos that you never saw before of some of our classic rock bands. And, it's like, wow, I didn't even know this existed. And it's great because rock and roll has a, long history now. And it's cool to kind of see the stuff that was like at the early stages.
And that's what's like. I so agree with you because when I'm traveling, if I hear a song, I'll just send it to my 3 friends that are around the country. Yeah, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh yeah, I've heard that. Here, check this one out." And then we're just sharing music.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's just so easy to do now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also with modern music, a lot of the genres are kind of getting blurred and stuff, and it's kind of cool. It's like, I might not, like all of the new stuff, but a lot of it I do. I think there's a lot of really good music still being made.
I always tell people, this is just my saying, Steve, but I go, I didn't like everything when it came out in the 80s.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Why would I like everything now?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
I didn't like all the country songs or pop songs or new wave songs when they first came out. So why would I like all the music that comes out now?
Exactly.
And my dad raised me listening to Motown.
Right.
And a lot of the Atlantic records and Buddy Holly and
that stuff still stands up. Yeah. I do find that I like a lot of the stuff that was done back in the day because it wasn't manipulated by a computer, or it was a bunch of guys who really rehearsed it and got behind maybe 1 or 2 microphones, like those Elvis records or Jerry Lee Lewis or Little Richard. It's believable. I do with modern music always have my eye going, did that person really sing that? Because so much stuff can be computer manipulated, but the good stuff will always rise to the top.
Exactly, it just does.
Yeah.
Good singer, good player.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I really like Harry Styles, and people go, Harry Styles, and I go, listen to his records. They're very much like the records that I grew up on, and it's like I said, the good stuff will rise to the top.
Yeah, and there's like some of Billie Eilish's stuff I really like, and she just turned 18.
Yeah,
I'm like, hold on, she's younger than both my daughters,
the crazy thing is that those records are done in her bedroom with her and her brother.
I know.
Yeah, it's uncanny.
It's insane to think that just spawned out of a bedroom.
Yeah.
Literally out of a bedroom.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and do you think that's a big change in the music industry? I'm sorry to.
It depends on the genre. You know, there's some stuff that can be done that way. For rock and roll, you know, Billy Idol and say my other project, Deadland Ritual, we still need a proper studio to go in because you're capturing the sound of the room. You know, you want big rock and roll drums and you want to interplay. But for some bands, they send files by the internet to each other and they add tracks and they've never seen each other. And it just depends on the type of music, I think. If it's but for real rock and roll, you want to get in there with the same guys and sweat it out.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you have to. It's just interesting that the music industry now, someone can become worldwide famous because her and her brothers worked in a bedroom.
Yeah, but the nature of their music lends itself to it.
Sure. Awesome. Anything else you want to add real quick before
I think that's about it.
I appreciate it. And hey, have a good trip. I know you're heading over to Australia and New Zealand and all that. That would be interesting, and see what's going on over there just alone will be eye-opening, I think. Yeah.
We have friends over there and stuff, and it's heartbreaking because there's so many of these animals. You know, I mean, the last time we were in Australia, my wife and I went to, Steve Irwin's facility there where they rehabilitate animals and stuff. And at that time, it was just like, she got to hold koalas and stuff. Some of them had one fell out of a tree or something. But I can only imagine what's going on there with the fires. So, I mean, just hope and pray for them.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
Again, I appreciate the time. Enjoy your weekend.
Pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure. And I'll be listening to you.
I appreciate it. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, Steve.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.